Hey, everybody. Welcome to this special episode of Blessings in Motherhood. This is a social media special, and we're going to be talking all about Halloween. We're going to use the 15 tools of classical learning to discuss our different perspectives of Halloween. And we just want to go ahead and say up front that this is an area of Christian liberty. This is an area where the Lord will convict you of the things that he is calling you and your family to do. And so this is a perfect opportunity to apply the 15 tools.
Yeah, the 15 tools have been so key in even just my understanding of classical learning and education. And I feel like I use them even when I don't realize it. And it kind of makes me feel better about teaching my kids in the classical model. So
love it. So with that said, we want to encourage you because we hope that you find this relatable. We're not trying to pretend like we know what we're doing. We are in the process of learning how to use these tools and learning how to have these conversations with each other with the utmost honor and respect. And so we're just going to jump right on in. So here we go. We're going to use our top 3 tools to define. And I'll let you know that I'm going to be on the no Halloween celebration side and she's going to be on the Halloween celebration side. So Ginny, what's your first tool?
So the first tool I chose to discuss was definition. I think it can also be a little bit of attending, and those can be found in what is it, the 5? I've got my cheat sheet right here. 5 core habits of grammar is attending, and then definitions found in the 5 common topics of dialectic. So the definition of Halloween, I think, is really been hard for me. I actually did a bit of research on what does it mean to celebrate Halloween, because I feel like it could mean something to me, and you could have a totally different definition. So when someone asks me, hey, do you celebrate Halloween in your house? I'm like, oh, well, what do you mean, honestly? This is how I don't even use the word celebrate, though, honestly. This is how we do Halloween. That's not the right way either. I don't know how to say it. I'm still figuring that out. But yes, we go trick-or-treating. I don't even call it that. We go around with our neighbors. We walk around our neighborhood with our neighbors. Yes, my children dress up. I have certain parameters the way they dress up. But my definition of Halloween is it invites community to be with us. We are able to walk around the neighborhood with neighbors whom we may not see every day. They invite us, hey, do you want to come trick-or-treating? That's how they say it with us. And I say it, tell the kids, hey guys, do you want to get your costumes on and go walk around with the neighbors? Absolutely, Mommy, that sounds fun. So I know there's so many different ways that Halloween has been defined. You can look at the hallow part, which, comes from the word holy. There's the background from Halloween is All Saints Day or Reformation Day, and people can celebrate that in so many different ways. But how we view Halloween is just a way that we can be in our community. We can celebrate really whatever. I don't know if we're really celebrating. We're just enjoying community. So that's why I kind of struggle with that word celebrate Halloween. I do not celebrate the underlying tones of what Halloween is. You think about all of the different decorations you see with, the skeletons, the scary things, the darkness. We don't celebrate that. We don't do those things. But we do spend time with our neighbors. We do have fun dressing up. We do things just a little differently.
Sure. Yeah. I love that you started with definition, because I think it really is important, to borrow a CC term, to define your terms and to make it clear what you're talking about. And I also really appreciate that you refrain from using the word celebrate, because, I don't have Webster's definition of the word celebrate, but I will say, I know that when you're celebrating something, you're making much of it. You're using it as a good thing. You're rejoicing in something.
Yeah.
And so I think it's wise for you and your family, before I go into my first one, for you and your family to differentiate there and to say, you know what, this is not something that we're celebrating. This is something that we're recognizing, acknowledging, participating in, but we're not going to use that word because I don't want it to be confusing to my kids, because that's not what I mean here, Yeah.
So, and another way we do that, and I may talk about this a little bit more later, is, we don't go and say trick or treat. Sure. We don't say happy Halloween. We actually have taught our kids to say God bless you.
There you go.
Which is another way. So we're not celebrating that word or the history of that. It's more, if we want to celebrate something, I would say we're celebrating our community, because Halloween, or, October 31st, however you want to put it, is a day where my community and my neighborhood does come together. It is a huge thing. Kids come from all around the area to the neighborhood we live in. So we may do it different. We might do it differently if we were in a different neighborhood. I don't know, because this is where the Lord has put us right now, in a neighborhood that is known for trick-or-treating, is known for getting together. The adults are out in their driveways saying hello. Big groups get together, and that's just how
That's
we
how you
see
do
it.
it. Yeah. So let's talk about the flip. So, of course, for the purpose of today's discussion, I am talking about the fact that me and my family right now, my son is 2, we do not celebrate Halloween. And I'm using the word celebrate because that's just how we always talked about it. We always said, do you celebrate Halloween? Yes, no. And again, I already defined what it means to celebrate. So that's how I view it. Like, no, I'm not going to rejoice in this. And the reason why I've landed on that is because of the definition, again, of Halloween. So I remember very clearly, honestly, being a little kid in the 90s in our old brick ranch house, and my mom pulling out this paper pamphlet and sitting us down and talking to us about the history of Halloween. And I think she still has this pamphlet in her house. And when I see it, it makes me feel, all icky inside because I remember the first time I saw it. And she just reminded us, okay, this is the history. There's All Hallows Eve and there's All Saints Day. And so if there is a day where it's said that all darkness and basically hell breaks loose and is allowed to do what it will on the earth, we don't want to celebrate that. That's just how it was explained to me as a child. And so my parents were really good, and I think I have held on to this, which is why I'm going way back to when I was 5, about giving us clear definitions of things and helping us to suss out darkness versus evil, or darkness versus light, or good versus evil, so that I knew the difference, even though there is a lot of nuance in this conversation. I'll get into a little bit of that later. But because it was so clearly explained to me at a young age, I've always seen it that way. And frankly, I haven't been able to unsee it that way because of the fact that darkness is real, and I know people whose family believe and practice witchcraft. And I know people who, and I personally have had certain experiences with darkness. And because I know how heavy that is, and I now am a part of the kingdom of light, I just don't want to play with it. Does that make sense? And so that's been kind of where my definition has landed and where I've drawn the line based on that definition. But what's your second tool?
Yeah. Well, I just want to say something real quick before we go into something else. I love how you brought in your past with it and your history and how you grew up with it. I do think that can help form our definition, right? It's not just reading a definition in a book. It's your experiences with something. It's the memories that you have from when you were little, and how it can be so different from somebody else, but you can still rejoice in that. We believe differently, right? And that's okay because we've had different experiences with it.
100%.
So anyways, so my second tool that I wanted to use is comparison. And I think it's comparison, guys. I'm still learning this whole 15 tools thing. So I wanted to just compare kind of what you talked about is the light and the darkness. The way we see it in our house, or the way I guess that we go about that, is there is darkness in this world, right? We know that. We share with our kids, and I think a lot of people can agree in this room, you probably can too, we want to share how we can be the light in the darkness with our kids. So we've had a lot of good conversations with them about what darkness is and how we shouldn't be scared of it, how we should know that it's there, that it is real, and we don't want to mess with it, but how can we be the light in those instances, and how we're not going to let it push us away from going into somewhere and being the light. Now, I want to also say, I know my kids are small. I'm not trying to say, I'm going to send them out and be salt and light in the world, and they're only 5 years old. That's not what I'm doing, because this is an instance when we're going around with our neighbors where I'm with my children. I'm holding their hands most of the time. And even, last year for Halloween, she was 4 years old then. She would look at some houses, Mommy, that's a scary house. I don't want to go there. I was like, that's right. What does that house remind you of? And she said, that's a dark house. I said, that's right. I was like, we can go in there and Mommy can help you, or we can stay away. And I would let her choose which houses that we go up to and which houses we don't. And for my son, he's all boy, right? So he would see some of the, scarier instances and he'd be like, no, Mommy, I can do this. I'm fine. And then he would go up there and we don't say trick or treat, or we don't say happy Halloween. We say God bless you. So in that way, he was kind of stepping up and being the light to that family, whoever it was passing out the candy or whatever they had. So practicing that, but I was right there with them. So that's kind of comparing darkness, I guess, and lightness. And then again, sometimes, I do believe as Christians, we are called to be uncomfortable. We don't want to just sit in our comfy houses and be comfortable. My husband and I went through that when we moved here, actually. It was like, oh no, we have our community. We love our church. We love our neighborhood. We don't want to move. But nope, God was like, you're going to need to start over. I was so uncomfortable with that. I do not like change. And this is another instance I think we can kind of play into that too. It is uncomfortable to see those scary images. And I turn my kids' faces away. We don't watch scary movies and do that. But we know how to recognize the darkness, and we know that we can be the light in that. And asking ourselves and the Lord, God, how can I be the light in this situation? Is this something you do call me to do? Because in all reality, whatever the background in our mind is of why we celebrate whatever we do or participate in things, does it glorify the Lord? And how can we bless and be the light to our neighbors in that? So we go through that a lot when it comes to Halloween and what we're going to do.
Sure. I think it's so funny. I'm interested to hear what your third tool is, but so far we have picked the same tools.
And guys, that was not planned.
The same illustration to come at it from like a different angle. So I think it's kind of cool because there's a lot of balance in this conversation, because I'm about to say the exact same thing that you say with the opposite conclusion.
I love it.
So here we go. I also wanted to use comparison, and a little bit of it, I think, is also me using the context, and let me get the correct word because I'm not using the right second tool. Hang on. So there's comparison and there's circumstance. So that's the context. That's the reason I use that word just now. And so two things. One, I'm going to get a little bit deep with biological and neurological development because, as you know, I have early childhood background.
Yeah.
Okay. So when it comes to the brain development, your brain, like a human brain, is not typically able to navigate or internalize nuanced or figurative thought until around the age 11. Okay. And I'm saying this as a background because I'm about to talk about light versus darkness. Okay. So I know this to be true. You know this to be true. You say something to your kid that's a little bit figurative and they're like, what do you mean? Or they take you seriously. Like they literally take you literally when you are actually just meaning it in a roundabout way. And that's a figure of speech. And no, God did not order our steps. They're not coming in the mail. We just mean, Lord Jesus, please go before us in everything we do. That's a little bit too abstract for a young brain, and God hasn't actually designed the brain to compute those things yet. And this is something I love about the way that we do things at Classical Conversations, and something I love about the stages, because the grammar stage exists for a reason. Right. It's not just we think it's a good idea. It's actually how God's designed people, that you're defining things and laying a firm foundation before you're able to look at them in a broader or more nuanced way. Yeah. So with that said, like I said, I have a 2-year-old. And so, but this was true for me even as a child. It's really important, as I have searched the Word of God and asked the Lord to clarify for me, like, how do you want me to live in this world with this topic, that I keep light and dark in 2 different categories and don't blur the lines, even though there is some nuance. And there are things like a little child dressed up as a pumpkin is not, being an evil ghoul, but it's alluding to something deeper. And so especially while my kids are young, I'm really working hard on helping the lines be crisp. And I have a passage that I'll read to you about that. But first, let me just tell you a story, because I'm not trying to act like I have this down. Okay, so obviously it's Halloween time. And I've been taking Leo in the store, and he is all boy. So he sees these skeletons and all of these different decorations, ghosts, different things like that. And he's super interested in them. So lately he's been begging me to take him to the store so he could see this stuff. Well, one day I'm like, I really just need to check out. We don't have time for that. And we don't acknowledge, well, we do acknowledge it, but we don't celebrate Halloween. So I don't want to entertain this or cultivate this in you. You're so young and impressionable. So I tell him, I was like, Leo, all of those things are celebrating darkness and it's evil. And we do not celebrate evil. We want to celebrate the light in our hearts. And Leo starts saying at the top of his lungs, I want to see the evil. I need to see the evil. I want to see the evil. Please take me to the evil, Mom. And like, he is very articulate. So it was not unclear what he was saying.
How many looks did you get in the store?
Oh, everybody was like, what is going on? And I was just like, okay, that wasn't the way to do it. I don't know. I don't know the right way to explain this to my 2-year-old, but I know I believe what I said, but I'm going to have to hand it to him differently because right now, here we are, and he's begging me to see the evil. So there's that. But this is what I meant to say that I wasn't able to say to him at the time, and I'll just read you Ephesians 5. So this is Ephesians 5. There's one verse in verse 3 that is talking about not participating with any kind of impurity. And then he goes on to be more specific starting verse 6. So this is a little chunk, but I'll read it to you. It says, let no one deceive you with empty arguments, for God's wrath is coming against the disobedient because of all of these things. What things? The impurity that he just mentioned. Right. Therefore, do not become their partners. For you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of the light. For the fruit of the light consists of all goodness, righteousness, and truth, testing what is pleasing to the Lord. So don't participate in the fruitless works of darkness, but instead expose them. For it is shameful to even mention what is done by them in secret. Everything that is exposed by the light is made visible, for what makes everything visible is light. Therefore, I said, get up, you sleeper, and rise from the dead, and Christ will give you light. And so then he goes on to say, to navigate in the world as with intention and being careful. And so just when I read that and I was thinking about it, it made it so clear. It's not just that you're walking in the light, you are light, which is what you're saying. You are the light of the world. And so expose the works of darkness. So how we're walking this out right now is just by saying, you know what? Okay, it's not cute to pretend to be a witch. It's not cute. It's not fun and funny to talk about ghosts and to use Ouija boards. That's not fun. That is darkness. And that is the angel of light disguising himself or all the powers of darkness disguising themselves as something that they're not. And I think there's a really common pitfall that Christian and well-meaning parents sometimes fall into, that we try to pretend like sin or evil or darkness isn't fun. And that's not true. It wouldn't be enticing if it wasn't fun. So, okay, there's something there, like it is fun, but it rots in your stomach, it's sweet in your mouth, but it makes you sick. Like it doesn't last. And I think that's what Paul is trying to remind them of. Like, you used to be a part of these things. You remember how it went. That's why you did it. But you're not made of that anymore. You're not made for that anymore. You have a new calling. So there's light that you can walk in. And so again, going back to what I said at the beginning about the brain development, especially while my son is young, because this is a huge conversation. And again, frankly, I'm going to have to come up with some new words because the words I've given him are not working right now. But while he's young, I'm going to try to do my best to make sure that he understands the difference between light and dark, because it's something that you tend to feel. Like, I remember having a really good sense of how darkness felt as a child, but I couldn't quite articulate it. And I want to try to give him the tools that he needs to be able to say, like, okay, this is the difference between these two things, and these are categories. And even though I'm in a world that is constantly trying to confuse me and blur these lines, light has no part in darkness, and the darkness never overcomes the light. So I'm just trying to help him to understand that, and that applies to Halloween. And we'll get into having fun in a second, but that's my second point of comparison and circumstance.
I love it. I think, too, you used a little bit of naming and attending, talking with Leo, because you were naming that as evil. And so he's learning these names, what to call things, and attending as in feeling that. Because, I think we can agree on that too. We feel that heaviness of darkness. Even my little kids thinking about what we're going through right now. My little girl, her friend just told her she's going to dress up as a zombie. And Lila has no filter. And she literally was like, why would you want to be a zombie? That's scary. Like I'm going to be, I can't even remember right now. I don't even know I can't remember. It changes like every.
Follow Ginny to find out. It's going to come out soon.
Right. That's right. But she was like, no, mommy, I stay away from that things. So it's again, going back to that point, naming and attending for your son in that. So, all right. My third tool, I changed my 3 to my 1. Sorry, y'all. I've got some notes. I just want to talk about community. And so I think out of the 15 tools, I wrote down 3 of them because honestly, I'm not sure. I think it could fit into all 3 categories, but relationship, testimony, and memory. And I want to say that's all in like the dialectic and the rhetoric kind of phase. Actually, it looks like they're all in that dialectic part as you're trying to develop understanding of something because honestly too, you guys, like we're all constantly learning about things and who knows, maybe we might do things differently another year when our kids are in different stages. But anyways, right now our family is super huge on community. It's a reason we love CC too. We love to be hospitable. We love to gather people together and break bread with them. We love to have experiences with them. We love to laugh with people. We love to cry with people. We love to wrestle and struggle in our lives with the people around us. And so that part of that probably comes, we own a bakery in town. So we want to be a part of our community when we want to let them know, like, we're here for you. We are around. So being hospitable and community is huge for our family. That's part of what we feel God's called us to do and why we are here in this specific time. So we use Halloween or that October 31st to build relationships with our neighbors. As I said earlier, like our community celebrates it really big. And we have, I think, 8 streets just on our cul-de-sac. And we have 25 children within maybe it's 9 houses, 25 children in 9 houses.
Wow.
And it's amazing. It's one of those where our kids just like go back and forth. But they invite us and we all walk together around the neighborhood together with our children. Are they all believers? No. Does that matter? No, we're going to go and we're going to have fun. And we do things a little differently. Even though we're walking with them through the neighborhood, my kids choose not to go up to certain houses. If they're scary, like I said earlier, we don't dress up as anything scary. That they know that is mommy's rule. Even 1 year, Banks wanted to be, I don't know, some kind of character, and I said, "Oh, we're not going to do that." I had to explain to him why. So we just feel like it's a place where we can meet people where they are at, and let them know, hey, we're here. We want to build relationship with you. Yeah, we may disagree on things, but that's fine. We want to hear your side and we want to be able to share ours too, Yeah, we don't go up and say trick or treat. My kids did say, God bless you. Yes. Lila did just tell that lady that has the skeleton hanging on her door, God bless you. It's that kind of thing. It allows us to meet new neighbors. We've been out and gone up to a house and realized, or they've realized, oh, you guys own Agora. Oh, that's amazing. I love that bakery. And we build that connection to where that might not have been a connection that we got with them otherwise in the neighborhood. And again, we are able to just show a different approach to what this holiday, I don't know, is it a holiday? Yeah. Another definition thing. This holiday is, Americanized and changed over the years drastically.
Yeah.
It's even more evil, I think, now than it has been in years from what some of the articles that I was reading as I was kind of researching this a bit, overly to the evil and even sexual part of that we don't want our children seeing. But we can show people a little different approach and how you can have fun. You can enjoy something. You can build relationships. You can, it's okay to dress up. It's okay to give kids candy or whatever you choose to hand out on a day like that. But show them a different approach. It doesn't have to be about skeletons and witches and whatever these creatures are, y'all, these days. And I'll be honest with you too. I was just telling Delise earlier, like, I don't go shopping that much outside my house. That sounds crazy. But I saw a post and this lady was in, I think it was like a Lowe's or something. And these Halloween decorations, my mind was blown. Like, they are horrific. And maybe it is where we live. I just don't see that far of a evilness. But it blew my mind. But I do want to meet people where they're at. And if I can say something that gets them to ask a question, well, why don't you say trick or treat? I would love to tell you. Let me tell you about my Jesus and why we choose not to say things like that or do it that way. So.
Yeah. So we're going to use the same tool again.
Look at that.
Do it.
And y'all, we did not plan that.
No, we didn't. I insisted that we not talk about it ahead of time because I wanted to have the real conversation right now. We established which side we were going to sit on, and that was all we talked about. So this is you guys getting the real thing. So I'm going to actually just distill it down to testimony from a couple of different angles, but I feel like it's pretty much what you said. You did a lot of relationship too, but it was also testimony. Speaking of having fun and like getting to dress up, I'll go back to my childhood and then I'll tell you about my parent plans. We always had a blast. In fact, we always had in my childhood more fun than my friends who went trick-or-treating because of how all out my parents allowed us to go in order to make sure that we were having a good time and we weren't under the guise that you have to do this in order to have fun or Christians never have any fun, etc. I was talking to my mom on the phone earlier and she was like, yeah, there was one year, and I do remember this year, where she was like, we're not doing anything. We're not celebrating that. It's evil, blah, blah, blah. And then the day came and she was like, oh, this is so sad. Everybody is out partying and having a good time because, my family likes to celebrate. She's like, we have to do something. So she goes and pulls out like face paint and we start making these pumpkin Cheerio things and we did all these things. And I was very young, but I remember that year because it was super fun. But then years after that, we always went to churches that had huge fall fest. Like they were community events where there were hundreds and hundreds of people with rides and just all kinds of big stuff. It was as fun as going to the fair. And so we would always dress up for that. My mom, I told you this a while ago, but my mom one year had two of my brothers do Moses in the burning bush. And there was always a contest. And of course they won the contest that year because who doesn't love a little 2-year-old burning bush? But
use that.
I mean, it's amazing. Lincoln needs to be the burning bush.
He would be a great burning bush.
He would be great. You can make his hair go. Anyway, so we always dress up, but we got to choose our characters. We would dress up as whatever we wanted. And we always got candy. So we never felt left out. But it was just a different way of like just celebrating who we were in Christ and having a good time on a night where we would otherwise feel left out or sad or tempted to go do something that we might not need to do, if that makes sense. So that's my testimony. And then with that said, I'm still trying to figure this thing out. Last year, I had a plan for Leo's costume because, of course, when they're little, it's the cutest.
It is.
Totally fell through. Didn't know how to go about it because I'm in a new town. And so I'm trying to navigate, okay, well, this is what I believe. This is what I want to see. What does it look like for me to make sure that my son does have a really great time? So I think we're going to need to start some new traditions, honestly. And I'm seeking God on it because I don't want him to be confused.
Right.
But I want him to know that like this is the life that is truly life and you can have a part of it and you can be a light and you can be not judgmental and rude to people who are doing it differently than you. It doesn't have to be a legalistic thing. So that's my perspective.
Yeah, no, I think we're basically saying the same things too. Like and what we talked about earlier, it's Christian liberties, right? We have this openness to discuss these things and see where each other's coming from. And it made me think of a verse in 1 Corinthians. Let me pull it out here in my well-loved Bible here. 1 Corinthians 10, I'm going to read verse 31, but you can read the context behind this. Actually, in my Bible, it's this little paragraph is called The Believer's Freedom. So there's some context back there, but verse 31 says, so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. And I think that's what it kind of just comes down to when you're deciding things like this, when you're talking to other moms, when you're learning and you are like trying to figure out, what do I want to do? What do I believe? You can ask yourself, am I doing this for God's glory? What is the Holy Spirit leading on my heart about this? Is it God glorifying? Is it going to build up the kingdom? Asking yourself things like that and being willing to have hard conversations as you're learning. I think I've shared with you guys before. I love just hearing different viewpoints on things because I think it's good for us. And we need
Mhm.
to be challenged sometimes. And we can take those things and say, okay, what do I believe about this? What this person said? Let me bring it back to the Bible. And we do that a lot with our kids concerning these types things that are really hard. I don't want my children to have images in their heads. We
Mhm.
definitely do not watch Halloween movies. And part of that is my past too, bringing memories back into it. There are certain types of movies, Halloween or not, that I cannot watch because of my experience with those things. And some movies, I'll be very honest, are biblical in nature. One just came out and I know I can't watch it because of my experience with something in the past. It is a well put together movie. It discusses a great topic. And I know a lot of people that have gone and supported it, but I know that I can't because
Mhm.
of how it's going to affect me and where my mind goes for that. So asking ourselves these questions, praying through it, I think is just real key.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I was
So,
babbling.
no, you weren't babbling. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation that we just had with you. We want to do more of these 15 tool discussions on fairly controversial topics because we know that motherhood and just parenting in general is full of all of these really challenging forks in the road. And we think that using these tools and using the wisdom that God has given us is a really great way for us to go about it and to honor one another. So let us know what you think in the comments. Which side of this discussion do you land on? And what are your top 3 tools or reasons why? And make sure that you go and subscribe to Blessings in Motherhood. Share this with a friend if you think they would find it helpful or encouraging. And we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, guys, we'll see you next time.
Thanks.